right, well hi guys, this is Mike at Johnson's Bait and Tackle, and we're going to talk about lingcod and rock fishing today. Basically going to give you a rundown on the things that I've been doing over the last 30 years, tricks of the trade, and just how to get these beautiful, tasty rockfish in your freezer. So first thing I want to start out with is rockfish, lingcod fishing. So there's a lot of opportunities in the ocean to catch some wonderful eating fish. I think lingcod and cabezon and rockfish are some of the best tasting fish out there. And they're not that hard to catch, but they are a lot of fun. You have no idea what you're going to be bringing up from the depths. And the first thing I want to start out with today is a little bit of etiquette on the boat. When you go down and you go fishing on a boat, whether it may be a party boat or a private boat, be aware of everything and everybody that's around you. Make sure that you're keeping space between you and another fisherman. And we'll get into some other methods that you can do to keep yourself from having tangles and issues out on the boat. The first thing I can say is when you go down and you go and fishing for these things, always have that kind of outlook as to the type of fish that you're going to be catching is not necessarily the type of fish that you were going after. There are so many different species of fish down there. But my favorite is lingcod altogether. So big, nasty, ornery looking fish that just tastes fantastic. The first thing that I could say is, as far as gear goes, there's a plethora of different types of gear out there. Personally, I like jig fishing. And I do bait fish too, but most of the time it's going to be on artificials. The thing that I can start out with for artificials would be something like the pit bull, the killer jig. The killer jig has been working really good out there, and it's an affordable lure, and it catches you big rockfish as well. It's not just lingcod they're going to eat that. Typically you're going to get bigger fish when you fish the bigger jigs and lures. The next thing I'd like to show you is something that I pair up, and that's going to be a curly tail grub and a 12-ounce lead head. These are the new lead heads from lingcodjigs.com. They are a glow-in-the-dark lead head, and they're really good looking. I don't know if you can get a close-up of that, but as far as a lead head goes, this is probably the best lead head I've seen. Because it's got a long shank hook to it. Also, he puts a lot of detail into the head, but he also puts another tie up on the top here. So you can run a trailer off of this, and I would think that you could jig with this here as well as up here. You're just going to be, if you're jigging on the top, you're going to get a vertical kind of jig like this. If you tie up to the nose, then that thing is going to go up and down like so. And with my experience, most of the time, when this thing is going up and down, it's getting bit on the sink most of the time. And so you have a big giant curly tail grub on there like this, which matches up. And these are the baby lingcod pattern that he has. This thing is deadly. Deadly, deadly, deadly. And the plastics are from Madam Lures. And Madam makes some of the most durable plastics out there. So this combination here is one of my favorites. The next thing that's really good is a jig just in general. Pitbull puts out a really nice jig. What I really love about these jigs is their glow. They have an 8x glow, and I'm telling you, this thing will light up a dark room once you get it charged with a light. Nice thing about these glow-in-the-dark diamond jigs, they got a nice flutter, they get down to the bottom quick, and they definitely hook the fish. The only thing you got to watch out for is, obviously, it's got a treble hook on the bottom. So when you let this thing sink all the way to the bottom, as soon as it hits the bottom, you've got to put 3 or 4 cranks on it. Otherwise, with the drift, you're just going to snag on rocks and snag on other stuff, and you're going to lose the jig. So remember that. Once you drop it down, 3 or 4 cranks up on the jig, and then you can start jigging your jig up and down. Another thing that I like to use is a popcorn krill by P-Line. So it's a 2-feather rig. And you're only allowed 2 hooks out there, remember that. And if you have a jig on the bottom, that's 1 hook. Then you can put a fly 18 inches up from that jig, that'll be 2 hooks. Or you can just fish a 2-hook rig like this. Maybe put a little piece of squid on there, maybe an anchovy on there if they have live bait. but this is deadly for the rockfish, especially in this white. White is my favorite color to use out there. I've caught fish on every color out there, but white is always produced for me. The next thing that I want to talk about is some of the terminal gear. So I like using heavy swivels. I'll use the snap swivel like these. There's a couple of other designs out there. Swivels that wrap. So you will slide your lure around this here and it'll keep it from coming off, and it's a quick, easy way, we'll get a close-up on that, to not have to retie every time you change a jig. Because that takes up your time. Time is very valuable out there. You only have a certain amount of time to catch the fish you are allowed to catch. So you don't want to spend all your time tying knots and rigging up. Do all of that before you go out on the boat. Save you some time, makes it to where you can catch more fish. Another thing that I take out there with me are beads. So these big beads like so, and you can use them in different colors, it doesn't matter. Those guys right there are going to keep you from winding your jig up into your tip top. I will put this on first and my swivel like so, just like that. And then that way, if I wind that up to the tip top, that plastic bead is going to hit the tip top, not this metal swivel that will break your ceramic guide, pop out your insert, whatever it may be. Also, you know, you got a nice bright bead. It's nice to be able to see that coming up. Sometimes you won't see this. You got a leader or something like that. Well, that bead, you're going to be able to see it, and you know you're going to have to slow down on your cranking. Otherwise, you're going to crank it right up through the tip top. Barrel swivels or crane swivels, always need crane swivels. McMahon swivels work really good too. So McMahon swivels kind of have this like scissor, and you pinch that, you put your jig in, and then you let it close, and then that will never come out. Those are, you know, not going to let your jig slide out or anything like that. And then one other thing that I like that they just, I mean, they've had for a while, but they work really, really well, is this Roscoe clip swivel. So the clip swivel is basically the same kind of setup as this other swivel, except it's a lot heavier duty. So if you come in here and you slide that in, you can see where your lure is going to be kept in there. The only way that you can get it out is if you pry this open and slide it out. But another quick example of how that can change. So now on to leaders. So I like to use, if I'm going to do a 2-hook leader, and that's what you're allowed is 2 hooks, then I pre-make mine, or I get them at the store here. We have them at the store as well. This is going to be for a jig and a fly. So as you can see, I've got my McMahon swivel at the bottom. I've got my dropper loop, and all I'm going to do is attach a fly to this, and then attach my big jig or my swim bait like this to the bottom. And that way you're going to have this little fly up here for the rockfish, and you're going to have the big bait down on the bottom for the lingcod. Now, when a rockfish comes along and eats that fly, well, this thing is going to start dancing all over the place because the flies or the fish is trying to get off the hook, and then your jig is going to be bouncing around. Now it's going to get the attention of the lingcod. Well, Mr. Lingcod comes around, sees the rockfish, he's like, oh, maybe that's food for me. Well, then he comes over and he sees the jig, and he's like, oh, easy money, and he goes and eats your jig. And then you got 2 fish at once. And that's perfectly fine. You can do that. As a matter of fact, that's an enticement to the lingcod, so that the lingcod, you know, come up and eat your jig. Another one that I like to use is a 2-hook rig. So this is put out by Pitbull. This is a 4-aught Octopus hook, 50-pound, 26-inch mono leader. And all you're going to do is pin a piece of squid or an anchovy, a piece of sardine, whatever you want to put on there. If you really like using the bait, then this is the way to go. And I guarantee you a fish every time you drop down on this. This is just how the rock fishing is. The other thing that I like to use is a trap rig. When I'm fishing bait like whole squid or whole mackerel, I like to put a trap rig on. And basically a trap rig is going to be a 2-hook rig. Some sharp hooks here. So what I've got, this is 40-pound big game. And I think this is like a 3-aught big game hook, okay? And then this is like a 4-aught treble. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that whole mackerel, and let's say my mackerel is yay big, okay? You don't really wanna get too big of them, because sometimes I have a hard time getting in their mouth, believe it or not. I mean, Lingcod have the biggest, nastiest mouth you've ever seen. You'll know when you catch one. But you can adjust this hook. This will slide up and down. So if I want to, I can shorten this, just like this, or I can make it longer just by pulling that back out. So I can make this as long as I want. This is gonna go in the nose of the bait. This is gonna go in the tail of the bait. So when that lingcod comes up and he just comes and grabs the back end of your bait, you know you're gonna get a hook set on. And I can't say this enough. With this bait, don't set the hook. When you're fishing this style with a large bait like that, like mackerel or a whole squid, those fish are going to get that in their mouth and you're going to hook them. You don't need to set the hook. Most of the time when you go to set the hook, you pull it out of the fish's mouth. So it's better to just feel the load on the rod, and as the load starts to bend down, or the rod starts to bend down, and just start cranking on it nice and smooth. Don't crank fast. You can spin fish off when you do that. I've seen so many guys spin fish off because they're just cranking like crazy. The other thing is, you don't need to pop your rod. I know that this has been embedded into us about stroking the fish, getting some line, and then cranking back down, stroking the fish. Well, every time you do that, if you aren't on it and you're not cranking fast enough, and you put that rod tip down, it's gonna put slack in the line. And those fish are just gonna shake that hook out of their mouth, shake that jig out of their mouth, whatever it is. The best thing you can do is lay that rod on the rail and crank nice and slow. Nice, methodic cadence. Nothing too fast, nothing too slow. And when you do get that fish up to the top, make sure you don't pull the fish's head out of the water. You pull that fish's head out of the water, and 70% of the time that fish shakes and he's off. And it's because all that weight is a full weight now. It's not like when it's in the water and they got that buoyancy, okay? Most guys, they pull fish up and they're out of the head out of the water, boom, the fish is gone before they even get a chance to call for a net or a gaff. But the main thing with those fish coming up like that, call the deckhand for the gaff before that fish gets to the surface. So the deckhand's there with the gaff or the net, and he's ready to get that fish. If you don't do that, then you're just going to lose a lot of fish. Also, there's another thing called hitchhikers. And a hitchhiker basically is a lingcod that comes up and grabs a rockfish and holds onto that rockfish. Doesn't necessarily have a hook in its mouth, but he's not going to let go of it. They're known for not letting go. There's plenty of videos out there on YouTube where I've watched like 60-pound lingcods wouldn't let go of a pollock. And the deckhand literally reached over, grabbed it by the gills, and pulls it into the boat. That's how determined they are to eat that meal. So remember, don't pull that fish's head out of the water. Make sure that you call for the gaff before you got that fish coming up. When you see deep color, that's when you should be calling for the gaff. Now once you get that fish up, they gaff the fish and all that, make sure that those fish are taken care of. I've seen so many guys so many times that they'll throw it in a dry gunny sack, or it'll just lay on the deck and bake. And that fish isn't gonna taste as good as a fish that's been taken care of. And most of the party boats, they're gonna throw them they're gonna put a pin on them, they're gonna throw them into a hold, and then, you know, they take care of them at the end of the day, fillet them for you or whatever it may be. Okay, so once you get through with all of that, another thing I'd like to talk about is squid jigs. I get these from lingcodjigs.com, they glow. This is a 16 ounce. It looks just like a squid. It's probably one of the most realistic squid patterns out there that I've seen with lures. And remember, there's so many squid out there in the ocean that up and down our coast, up and down Oregon, Washington, all the way down through Baja. And this is the candy of the sea. This and octopus. So I'll lead into that octopus. Several companies make different octopus. So this is Savage Gear's octopus, which I love. It's got a 10X plastic to it, so that plastic stretches, it doesn't break. Another one that is really good is lingcodjigs.com octopus. I've caught so many lingcod on this setup right here. And what I like to do is I will go and I will get little baby octopus, and we sell them here at the shop. tiny Taiwanese baby octopus. And you can put a whole one of those little guys on, and it is a great, great bait. Those Lingcod absolutely love octopus. Whenever you bring a fish up onto the deck and it spits an octopus up, grab that thing and put it on your hook and drop it back down. You're going to catch a nice fish. So both of those things work so well. And basically you're just matching the hatch. I mean, that's what you're doing. This is the saltwater version of what a fly fisherman does, and that's match the hatch. You're matching what those fish eat. All right, guys, so another thing I'd like to talk about is scent. Now, I know a lot of guys are thinking, well, hey, you got a sardine on there, you got an anchovy on there. No, I call this the deal closer. So a fish comes up to look at your jig or your lure or whatever it may be, and it doesn't look like the usual stuff they're eating. It's close, but then they get that whiff of scent, and that just kicks the stomach in and turns the brain off, and they eat. Two of my favorite flavors out there, and they're both by Procure, is the butt juice. Yes, it is called butt juice, but it's halibut juice. Okay, so there's also, you know, herring scent and all kinds of stuff that you can put on there. But these two, the Predator and the butt juice, I've had the most luck with. I guess the next thing that we want to get into is going to be rods and reels, and I'm going to have Arron come in and take over. Arron is one of our employees here at Johnson's Bait. I'm sure everybody knows who he is, and so come on up, Arron, talk about the rods and reels.
Alrighty, guys, so you know, kind of, you know, as Mike explained to you guys, all the gear side of things. Now you need the gear to drop it down and hook and, you know, catch those fish. So I'll kind of go over reels first with you guys. There's, you know, a massive amount of reels out there that you can use. A couple of different, you know, styles. You know, one style is going to be an Avit SX. So this is going to be a style that, you know, normally people would call a conventional style reel, something that does not have a level wind, something that's not going to line that wind back on for you, you know, but it is as simple as, you know, using your thumb to wind that line back on. There we go. You know, so also on these guys, another style is a lever drag. Most reels that do not come with a level wind come with a lever drag, and vice versa, you know, for other reels. So with the lever drag, it is essentially just a lever that increases and turns your drag on. So that's one style. Another style is going to be a low profile, as most people will say. So this is a Daiwa Lexa 400. They also make this style in an HD series, which is their saltwater series. It'll look a little similar to this. This is in a 300 size. And essentially, you know, with a low profile reel, you are going to have a level wind, something that will wind that line back on for you. But those do not normally come with a lever drag. They will have a star drag, you know, so something you just tighten or loosen, depending on how tight or, you know, loose you want your drag to be. Usually, low profiles are a little bit easier to use. They are a little bit better on casting and castability. But the upside to a conventional style reel like an Avit is going to be that the power these things pack. I've seen these reels catch monsters for their size. You know, Avit does 9 to 13 pounds of drag on this reel, you know, versus Daiwa's 22. It may sound weird. This is way less. Why would you even use it? It just varies between companies. Their 9 to 13 pounds of drag is just as good as these guys' 22. So just depends, you know, a lot of knowledge that's secretive that you kind of have to dive into and look to see what's actually happening. So that's kind of a, you know, a rundown on reels. If you are not using a bait caster and you are wanting to use a spinning reel, again, something that's going to have good line capacity. This is a BG 5000 from Daiwa. You know, mainly you're just looking for something that's going to have a lot of power, a lot of line capacity, something that's durable. You are going to be out in the salt water, so you don't necessarily want something that's going to, you know, deteriorate over time. So BG 5000 would be a great spinning reel choice. So next on the agenda for you guys is going to be rods. Now, rod selections are probably 3 times as many options as, you know, bait casting and spinning reels. So this is a Phoenix Axis in a 720 medium heavy. This is going to be like a 20 to 40 pound test. It's going to be probably one of your better options. These guys are around $289 to $299. But when you're looking at a rod in general for ocean fishing in general, halibut, rockfish, lingcod, sturgeon, all those kinds of things, you're going to want to look for a composite rod. And what I mean by that is a composite rod is going to have a mixture of graphite and glass, or S-glass is what they like to call it. And that's going to give you a very soft, moderate action that'll give you that very nice soft tip. You don't want something that's very fast and stiff, because then you won't see a lot of those bites. You won't be able to keep that fish pinned, you know, and so you want that nice moderate action rod. So an Axis is a great one. Another great one is a Phoenix Abyss. They specifically design these rods to have a very nice, soft, moderate action to them. That makes them probably one of the most popular rods up here for ocean fishing guys. And you'll kind of see that with ease, not too hard on the pulling down. You have a lot of tip here. Very soft. Be able to see every single bite as they're biting. Lots of power in the back end, even when you have this much rod bent over already. So a Phoenix Axis or Phoenix Abyss series is going to be a great option for you guys. And you know, most ocean fishing rods are going to vary anywhere between $150 to $200 range. You can go all the way to $500. You can do kind of whatever the sky's the limit is. But you know, for a guy who just wants to just get into it, Ugly Stick makes a Tiger series rod. This rod, I believe, is like 65, 70 bucks. But these things are almost indestructible. You know, is it super comfortable and is it super sensitive? No. But, you know, you're going out on the weekend with some friends and you don't have any gear and you want to get something affordable that you can start to use, this is probably something that you're going to want to look into. You know, Ugly Stick makes a great series rod and still a little bit stiffer, but it'll still have enough tip for you to, you know, get down there and see all those bites that you're getting with your jigs, your shrimp flies, all that kind of stuff. You know, there's a bunch of different guys. Dobbins makes a rod. Douglas makes an LRS series rod. This is an 805. This would be more or less a lighter rod. Usually when you are doing your, you know, big lingcod jigs, squid jigs, stuff like that, you're going to want a stiffer rod and just a heavier rod in general, because something that you definitely don't want to happen is you don't want a noodle. When the rod's bent like this holding that jig and you're jigging it up and down and only the rod's moving and the jig is standing still, you're not jigging the lure. You know, you're more or less just moving your rod up and down. So you don't want it to be so soft to the point where you're not going to get the action that you want. So usually with a softer rod like Douglas's LRS 805 or even a Dobbins Champion swim bait rod, this is going to be more or less like your rockfish rod, your lighter setup rod, stuff to use with your you know, your live bait rigs, your shrimp fly rigs. Those are going to be more geared toward these lighter setups. You know, setups that you can even use Alexa 300 with, some that you don't have to go as big as the 400. So yeah, just a couple of different options. You know, it's more or less just about asking the right questions. You know, you don't necessarily want to, we try to urge people not to buy too much stuff online if they're just getting into it, because there's so much out there. There's such a vast amount of, you know, rods, reels, tackle, all that kind of selection and stuff. And, you know, we would hate for you to go out and buy a rod that you wouldn't be able to use out there, or that, you know, may not be suited for what you're going after. You know, and so even if it's just a matter of calling and say, hey, I'm going out this weekend and I can't make it up, what lures are working right now? Give us a call. You know, we usually have probably some of the best knowledge out here. Every single person that works here has ocean and all different kinds of knowledge. You know, and as you can see, Mike's been doing this for 30 plus years. He's created a massive amount of knowledge over the years that he can, you know, share with everybody. But yeah, so that's kind of going to give you your rod and reel selection. Oh, before I forget, for those spinning rod guys, Phoenix also does make a spinning rod series. This is in their Abyss HD series, you know, with the bigger eyelets. You know, so with those guys that are still wanting to get out there and just don't want to use an old style conventional reel, they want to use a spinning setup, they still make that kind of stuff for you guys to be able to get out there and do the same kind of fishing that everybody's doing with a bigger conventional reel. So that's going to be, you know, your guys' rod and reel options. You know, as I said, it's more or less just finding what you're most comfortable with. You know, whether it be price-wise or you know, tackle-wise, comfortability, personally, all that kind of stuff. So yeah. So again, this is Aaron with Johnson's Bait and Tackle. You know, trying to get everybody all their knowledge that they need for whether it be, you know, rockfish, lingcod, halibut, any kind of ocean or freshwater fishing. You know, definitely come on down. We are always open. We're 7 days a week, 6 in the morning till 7 at night. And you know, like I said, everybody here has done pretty much everything. So whether it's me, Mike, Jim, Josh, Brian, Daniel, all those guys, they'll have the knowledge that you need. And you know, even if they don't, they'll call me or call Mike or call whoever's, you know, available, and we'll still get you the knowledge. You know, and that's very important to us, that we make sure you guys get, you know, accurate and good knowledge, so that way you guys can actually get out and catch your fish. So thanks guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Facebook, Instagram. We have an online website, all that kind of stuff. So thanks.
All right, so in closing, I'd like to tell everybody, come on in, see us at Johnson's Bait and Tackle. We can get you fishing, catching some wonderful fish, having a good time, and that's what we're really here for. Both Aaron and I, we love this business, we love fishing, and there's nothing better than seeing our customers have success out there on the water. Thanks again.